next item on our agenda will be the airport, or field, sorry, Michael.
Airstrip.
Counselor, before we get going, I will be abstaining from this application. There was an issue raised regarding an infrastructure on a board. I chair a board whose infrastructure that is. Doesn't mean there's an issue with it, we just don't know for sure yet, so it's something that's going to be taken a look at. And after a discussion with our council, how you doing, Kevin?
Good.
I've made this call, and so I will be leaving you. I've asked Julius to chair this portion. And thanks for coming.
Are you giving him a voice, or where's his voice?
That's all right, he'll get it.
Is he gonna move up here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dory can hear you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
All right.
Okay, I'll go.
Get along safe, everybody. My name is Kevin Martin, and I'm an attorney with Martin and Rahill. We represent Mike Baldwin, who has a petition, I guess, in front of the town and the planning board to approve his airstrip. And we received a letter from Mr. Cully's office on Saturday indicating there was some additional information that was needed. So what I decided to do is to sort of write back to Mr. Cully, and that's what I put in front of you. I'm probably being overly careful, but the lawyers aren't supposed to talk directly to people who are represented by other lawyers, so I sort of wrote this to Mr. Cully.
Did you pay something else?
I did. Did you get it?
You got it?
Here's the next one here.
Do you have one?
I've got more.
Thank you.
I've got more.
That's Alice's copy.
Okay, good.
All right.
Which is
Okay, good.
All right, and there were two concerns that were raised in the letter. One was related to the water tower that is proposed by the Water Authority. And there's a couple of things in response to that. What we've done is attachment 1 is a copy of the tax map, which shows Mr. Baldwin's property, and you'll see sort of in the middle of the tax map there's an X, which shows the location of the airstrip and his landing path coming in from right to left, and then his takeoff going from right to left as well, away from the water tower. So there's a couple of things. The airstrip flight paths do not intersect with the water tower. Secondly, Mr. Baldwin's airstrip is at around 940 feet elevation. The water tower is at 810 foot elevation. So that as he's coming in, not only will he not be on the same flight path, but he'll be hundreds of feet above the elevation of the water tower as well. So there should be no problem with it from a vertical or lateral separation perspective. The second thing that was mentioned was some question about noise and a sound study. And so we wanted to put some facts that we could to get together over the weekend in front of you about that. And a couple things right off the bat.
May I ask you one thing?
Sure.
Is this relating to the flight?
It's relating to the sound.
This is related?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second attachment, what that shows is the end of the airstrip in the lower right-hand corner there, yep. And then there's a measurement from the end of the airstrip to the closest residence. So, which I will get to. And it's about 700 feet for the closest residence, but we'll get to that. Basically, what we're talking about is when Mr. Baldwin wants to use his plane, here's what happens. He's going to taxi out at idle speed, and the airplane is about 1,800 pounds. It's about half the size of a compact car. The engine is 4 cylinders, like a compact car. It's 180 horsepower. Maybe that's a little bit more than a compact car, but there's plenty of cars that have 180 horsepower engines. So there's nothing extravagant or exciting about that. It's a 180 horsepower engine. 4 cylinders. Very common. When he taxis out at idle speed, from 700 feet, it'll be inaudible to the next nearest person's house. What he'll do then is that he'll power up to full speed, maximum RPM, for about 10 seconds. He'll have the brake on, he'll be checking his instruments, and actually probably less than 10 seconds, we're trying to be generous. So for about 10 seconds, full speed, he'll let the brakes off, and he'll start taking off down the airstrip. About halfway down the airstrip, which again is Exhibit 1, he'll be over 1,000 feet from the nearest residence. All right, and for about it'll take about 5 seconds to get to the middle of the airstrip, where he'll actually start to leave the ground. At that point, he'll be 1,000 feet from the nearest residence. And he'll start to bank, as you can see in the picture in Exhibit 1, he'll start to turn to the left. Yeah, there's actually a tree that he has to go around, and he'll start to turn to the left, and he'll be getting further and further away from residences. There's nothing but open land out here and farmland. So, and then he'll be full power for about another 10 seconds. The total amount of time is about 30 seconds at full power. So it's 30 seconds each time that he takes off. When he lands, he'll be coming in at basically idle speed, which will be much lower, much quieter. The amount of times we're talking about in a whole year, he'll only be able to fly when there's good weather. So we're talking May through October.
Or less.
Right, 30 seconds, right. We talked about this. I said, well, how many times a week? He said, well, maybe once a day on average, because he and his wife, they go away in the summer on vacation, so they're not even here in New Hartford all the time. So we're talking about just a very limited number of times when he would even be able to take off. And then each time he does take off, we're talking about 30 seconds at full power, 1,000 feet from the nearest residence.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure. It's okay.
Is that okay? So,
Sorry.
you keep saying he, because what we'd be voting for, or voting on tonight, isn't about he, we'd be voting on it. So, is the strip long enough that if a bigger plane wanted to land to take off there, that it could, so that the sound would be more?
No. As I understood it from the proposal, is that Mr. Baldwin would not be allowing others to use the airstrip. Is that correct?
It's never been stated. However, to answer that question, the airstrip is 900 feet long, which is very limited.
Yeah.
For normal airplanes, you're talking 2,000 feet. So it would be restricted at any rate
Just because
to
of the
light
length.
aircraft.
Just because of the length?
Yes.
So is he saying other individuals would be taking off and landing?
No. That's not the plan right now.
So
It's
this
just
is
for
a
his own
private
personal
airstrip
use.
for Mr. Baldwin only.
Right. That's the plan right now.
That's
Yeah.
as we know it.
Right. It's for his personal use. I don't know if you know the history about it. He actually, he built the plane himself. And he started in 1999. And he's got a very significant investment of time and money into this hobby. I think, well over, he doesn't like to say this out loud or in public, but it's well over $100,000 just in the plane itself. And then in addition to that, the cost of creating the airstrip. And so,
So it's zone residential up there? And
Agricultural.
Agricultural. So if he wanted to lease space to let other people store their planes, Joe's not here, could that be done?
I don't know
Which would
the
make it a
answer.
commercial enterprise. Do you know, Brimer? I mean, I don't know that much about agricultural.
I think that would be
I thought it was all agricultural.
And that's a permitted use.
non-permitted use. You would have to have a special,
Okay, so it'd have to come back.
to lease, to do any leasing or charging or any form of that. Yeah,
Yeah, because then it becomes commercial, doesn't it?
yeah,
We're gonna,
then it would be
we're
commercial.
gonna have to make two motions when we're, done with the presentation. One is was going to be a motion on decision with this application, as everybody stated already, it is a permitted use. So I would say we have to make sure we are addressing, our concerns in that final motion as we're doing it.
Julius, I only have a concern that if other people are on agricultural land, want to have private airstrips in the town of New Hartford, and I'm thinking a lot of agricultural or uses. Is this binding, would our decision be binding on those also?
Setting a
Or is
precedent.
this just a one-shot? Herb?
It would be binding in terms of you are setting a precedent for other individuals to follow, but each application stands on its own merits.
Okay,
You can
'cause I was
deny one and
thinking
grant
of-
another depending on where the location is.
Yeah, I was thinking of, there used to be one on Tilden Ave, an airstrip.
Smithport.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well.
And, if somebody wanted to come in and reactivate that, do we have, that's what my concern is. If we restrict this one, are we restricting everybody else? If we're not, those are the issues that I thought about.
Kevin, you said 1,000 feet from the nearest residence.
Right.
Are you talking about the nearest residence as it exists today? Because it
Yes.
looks like there are a number of residential lots in close proximity. Are these not,
Those are all owned by Mr. Baldwin, I think now.
he owns all these?
Wait, oh, excuse me, no, not
Isn't this
those.
Mr. Verkler's?
Right, yeah, no, you're right.
Isn't this Longworth Acres?
Lot of acres, yeah.
So those are resident, what's the,
It's as it exists today.
as it exists today?
Right,
like-
the nearest residential.
Right,
Right,
but
but
the
not the
question
nearest-
is, what is the distance, and what is this lot
Oh, yeah,
right
those
here?
are down the hill.
Uh,
That's Keaveney, no.
that's,
Yeah,
that's
Keating.
ag.
That's
Right.
Keaveney, yeah.
That's where they were proposing the rec fields and the soccer fields and things?
I don't know.
Yes.
So when you say 1,000 feet, you're saying 1,000 feet from the nearest residence as it exists today, but
Correct.
not 1,000 feet from property that could be developed for residential purposes?
Could be. Right.
You talked about the sound. You're aware that the board has received correspondence from residents who I think came to one of the meetings talking about the loud noise. Is there any response to their
Yeah, I mean, I think
concerns?
the, loud noise is in the ears of the beholder, I guess. If you look at the sound of a lawnmower, for example, and you look at these maps, the sound of that person here, their next door neighbor mowing the lawn for an hour and a half with a lawnmower is going to be much worse than 30 seconds 1,000 feet away with a 180 horsepower engine. It just, if you look at OSHA standards, and I was going to get to this, for
We
example.
don't have a noise standard,
There aren't.
do we?
There are such things as OSHA standards. And if you take a look at these, I've done a number of these kinds of sound cases in the past. Most of my practice is actually in labor and employment law, so I run into these OSHA cases once in a while. And like a fairly loud concert is like a 90 decibel, and the OSHA standards, like, you can have like 90 decibels, but no more than 6 hours at a time before there's any human impact. It's surprising. In addition to that, if we were to look at things like the lawnmower or just a truck driving by your house, you'd be surprised how many decibels a truck will generate, driving by your house. So that if we were to go out and actually measure, 1,000 feet away, there's an airplane taking off, and then a truck passed behind you while you're standing in the driveway, it would render the plane inaudible, because the truck going by would actually be louder and would offset the sound of the plane that's 1,000 feet away. So, you know, there's no real standards. The FAA does have a standard. The FAA allows jets to fly within 500 feet of your house, which I have in here. So a jet with 4 jet engines can fly within 500 feet of your house in a rural area. And we're actually further than that with a 180 horsepower engine, which is essentially a car engine, a 4-cylinder car engine. So that we're not even close. We're not even in the realm of noise problems. I mean, certainly someone could come up and subjectively say, oh, I heard the sound, I don't like it, it bothered me, but those aren't facts. You know, that's somebody who's unhappy with it. And what you need are facts. And in this case, we're talking about a very modest amount of time, number one. But when OSHA looks at this stuff, they look at time, they look at the, you know, the setting. In this particular case, because it's a downhill, you're going to have the sound waves starting to expand. As the sound waves expand going down the hill, it lessens their intensity. So that you're going to have all these things. When you get into these sound things, you get into things like humidity. Humidity affects it. It's, you know, the trees in between. So that, you know, if someone came in with a decibel reading that said, oh, you know, it's 100 decibels when he flies over me, I still don't think it would be a problem because it's 30 seconds. So when you look at OSHA standards and FAA standards, we're not even in the realm of discussion. It's not even close. There's just your neighbor's lawnmower is much more annoying. But these are things that we're used to. So when something new comes along, sometimes, you know, there's a tendency for people to
Well, most of us have the jets coming over.
Right.
Fairly often, because they do their testing.
Right, and there's actually, there are studies out there of people who live near some major airports like LAX, and fairly famous ones, about, you know, people getting 13 and 14 hours of constant, you know, jet engines coming in and out and measuring the decibels, and they're in the 70, 80 range for 13, 14 hours at a time. This is all allowed. This is allowed by regulation, but they're trying to determine whether or not there's any kind of adverse impact on people. And we're talking about orders of magnitude less kinds of problems. I should correct, and Mike pointed this out to me, on the first page, I talk about how he's going to idle the engine for 10 seconds and then hit the brake. Just to let you know, I told you the correct thing, which was he'd be full power at 10 seconds, he would not be idling. So my letter's wrong on page 1 there. It's actually going to be...
Yeah, they rev up the plane to make sure.
Rev it up with the brakes on
Sure.
and go. So that I just wanted to correct that.
Anyone that flies knows that.
It'll be full power for 10 seconds, then he lets off the brake. For another 5 seconds, he'll go and begin to ascend.
Okay.
A total of no more than 30 seconds. And maybe I've touched on this already, but under the current FAA rules, a jet engine can fly within 500 feet of your home. Mr. Baldwin will be further than that from any current residence as they sit today. So with a much smaller plane, a much smaller engine, and for a very, very brief period of time. So in looking at maybe Exhibit 2, just to explain what's there, you can see in the lower right-hand corner, so the end of the airstrip is that light there, and then Mr. Baldwin measured from there to the property line is 590 feet through thick woods, and then actually there's another 110 feet to the residence. So it's actually 509 feet, 90 feet to the end of the... So if somebody got out of the house and walked to the end of their property, it would actually be 590 feet in this picture. So that's what this is showing. Just to
Well, let me ask
be
you,
clear.
if you look at the tax map and you see the X, there are 2 strips, which one is takeoff, one landing, I don't know, but are you telling me that it's 500 feet from 36.2, 87.8, that this distance is 500, isn't it like 5 or 10 feet?
Was that? No, there's no residence here. This is all open land.
Right, that's Keevan, which is where they're talking about putting the youth soccer, etc. facility.
Right, but
So
there's
this
no
is-
home there. There's nobody there now.
Right now.
Well, who's
Right.
they though? You're talking about things I'm not familiar with and maybe it's been in the paper and I've missed
No,
it because
but
I
there have
travel so
been
much.
people who have talked about putting a recreation facility up there, like a field of dreams with soccer fields
Oh,
and things
like
such
we
as
have
that.
down on,
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is,
But how
this,
can we vote on, how,
well,
we can't do
One
that.
point, with the airfield shown as a sketch on the map, I gotta ask one question. Joe Booth had a chance to take a look at this and review it. Did he have concerns are we in violation of any town codes with this airstrip the way it's currently set up or planned to be set up?
I don't believe we are.
Uh,
Okay,
My
then.
question is, there's a statement in here saying that the nearest residence from the end of Mr. Baldwin's airstrip is 700 feet. That's as we sit here today. But what I'm asking it is, these are residential lots that are zoned for residential dwellings. Somebody could,
They're agricultural.
right, you could build a house.
Yeah, you can build a house.
And Mr. Verkler's Longworth Acres, you can build houses. Those are residential.
Except there's no
But that's
frontage left.
downhill.
There's no frontage left on
Okay.
those lots.
They're residential building
Well done.
lots, and what I'm asking is, when you made the representation 700 feet, did you take into consideration lots on which residences could be built?
No, we just looked at who's there now.
That's all I had to say.
Well, you can't.
And just to be clear, right, I mean, who knows, it's speculation. I mean, the other thing is, there is an arrow here showing that where these proposed fields are, that would be the end of the landing. So when Mr. Baldwin landed, he would land
Right.
and these
Where were these
slowly
lots that they're talking about?
heading towards that end of the airstrip.
Oh, the end of Berkler's stuff?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Berkeley's, where there's a
But
house
he's
here, a
coming
house
out
here,
of
and a
a
house
higher,
here.
higher elevation.
But the houses are
Those
by the
are all
road.
down.
The
Yeah.
houses are all there by the road, yeah.
Yeah,
And
But I thought-
the frontage is gone, that's
yeah, all the frontage is gone.
backyard.
Now, we received input from every agency, and we've had an opportunity to review that.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any additional comments, concerns, questions associated with the application or anything that was presented by the agencies? If everybody's set with additional questions, we need
I
a motion.
will be closed, people.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
That's the first. You ready for the second?
I'm
Okay?
ready for the second one. Now, we've discussed quite a bit of things relative to noise, operating, field that's existing. Do I have, can we get a motion on the airfield as it's presented for this activity?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
What's the
What's the
motion?
motion?
To approve. To approve?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're all set?
All in
We're adjourned.
favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.